Hi Delaware FFA, and in this installment of Delaware Ag Telling Our Story, we are with Georgie Cartanza, and we're just going to jump right into it. So Georgie, can you give me a brief description of your job and some of the responsibilities that you have?
Well, first off, I'm a poultry farmer, so I grow chickens myself, but I also work for the University of Delaware as a poultry extension agent. So what that means is I do outreach and education with farmers, poultry growers in particular, about what they can do to be more competitive, be better farmers, be more mindful of animal welfare, their environmental impact, anything associated with growing those chickens. If they're struggling with performance, I'll go out and try to help them with that. So there's a lot of different things that I'll do to try to be helpful. I also do outreach and education with the general public so they understand the importance of the poultry industry to Delaware and to Delmarva in particular. But I also will do outreach and education with kids, young kids, just so they understand, okay, where does their food come from? How do we grow these chickens? And I really like to try to just build a bridge of understanding with everybody of how important the business is to Delmarva, but also too, try to dispel some of the myths and misconceptions people have about how their chicken is grown so that they understand that better. And a lot of times, like the outreach we do is really teaching about the fundamentals, like why does ventilation look the way it does? The company and the flock supervisor will give them specifics of maybe how they want things set, but we'll try to help them understand maybe a little bit more about the why. And so that's a part of my job I really like doing, because when the light bulb kind of goes off and they say, oh, well, that's what I'm really trying to accomplish when I mix my air like that. That's why we want the static pressure, or why we're doing that with the amount of time we run. So that actually was my very first job out of college, was as a flock supervisor. So that's really where I got a lot of my experience. I got to work for Purdue for 8.5 years, and I worked for Mount Air for 3. And when I was at Mount Air, I started branding poultry farmers out. So it's been all those things have really prepared me. Each experience I had prepared me for the next step.
So what would you say your biggest challenge has been this year in concerns to the new restrictions and COVID?
Well, probably the biggest challenge has been in terms of with poultry growers. I can still do the one-on-one. I am considered essential. However, when we normally do our bigger groups and we bring people together, whether that's a nutrient management training or whether we're doing a ventilation program for either spring or going into wintertime, we don't get that face-to-face interaction. And so you can share those things online, but sometimes it's a lot harder to kind of read the audience to know, okay, the way I've explained this, are they getting it? Or do I need to maybe go about it a little different way? Circle around and make sure that the concept is being understood.
So you're obviously very experienced in poultry. So where do you see this industry growing in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, here on Delmarva, I don't know that we'll see an expansion in housing as far as more housing capacity. But if you were to look and see what we're doing, I think we're always looking at evaluating technologies to help improve animal welfare, bird comfort, all those things. I think on the processing side of things, so if you look at not just the live side, but once that bird goes to market, I think we're going to see a lot more. There's a tremendous amount of automation in a poultry processing plant, but I think we'll see more robotics coming into play. I think COVID really showed us maybe some of the bottlenecks in our food supply system, and that may, some of those pieces will be difficult to overcome. But I definitely think there'll be a push towards more automation, and I think we're always going to be striving for improvements in animal welfare and technologies that can help improve the conditions we provide in the house.
And speaking of these improvements, not just in the poultry industry, but maybe in your own career, what has been your biggest success that you've had this year?
Well, I mean, a recent one is extending, kind of doing some outreach on Facebook. I throw out an idea, just kind of impromptu, and about sharing, kind of give teachers the opportunity to follow a flock of chickens. And so there's been a tremendous amount of interest. I've had a class from New York City and Brooklyn call me or reach out to me. This week I was on a Zoom with them. They watched the videos, and so I was answering questions for an hour and 20 minutes that the kids had about, why do we do this and so on. And so I think it's a great way for them to understand where does their food come from, and to understand there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it just gives that little bit of inroad to say, okay, I'm a chicken farmer. I care about my animals. I care about this is going to be food for us to eat. And so I think it's important to try to build that rapport and understanding with consumers. And so those are really young consumers, but it's a great way to start.
And that advocacy is absolutely amazing, especially because poultry is such a big part of Delaware Agriculture. So these students are looking at what you're saying, and they are looking at you growing your poultry. What skills would be necessary for them to pursue a career in maybe the poultry industry or even extension?
Well, I think the real key, and this would be true for really any job, is your ability to communicate is so important, and to be able to be professional, to be able to listen, to show that you have humility, but at the same time be competent in your knowledge so that you can share it without being arrogant. And so, because you may be dealing with people that are much different, from a totally different generation than you are. And so you got to find ways to connect and show that you care about the outcome for that person you're working with, because your motivation really will influence the outcome of any interaction you have. So I think an awareness, because communication isn't just what we say, it's our actions, it's everything we do. So that's number one, and the ability to do that. I think you have to be organized, you have to be self-disciplined and self-directed, and you got to be willing to take responsibility and have an eagerness to learn and be able to share and help people. Because if you learn something but you don't pass that knowledge along, well then, what good is that? And so that would be true in extension. That's true really in any job you have.
Of course. And then this student is looking at the skills that you just mentioned, and they're also looking at maybe the poultry houses that you showed them through Zoom. So why should they be interested in the poultry industry or extension?
Well, I have to tell you, for me, the poultry industry has been a tremendous blessing. It gave me my first job out of college. It gave me the opportunity to learn. I did not grow up on a farm, so the fact that a company would be willing to kind of invest in you and teach you what you need to know. I've been blessed to have great mentors along the way that taught me many things. And so just, that opportunity to learn and grow, and those experiences, everything, even if it's a job you may not like, prepares you for life. And each one of the experiences I've had has been like has been a learning experience. Was like not a stepping stone per se, but like prepared me for the next step in the journey. And so that to me is really, why would somebody want to go into poultry? Poultry is more than just growing chickens. It's more than a processing plant. It's marketing, it's accounting, it's sales, it's transportation, it's electronics, robotics, it's maintenance, it's logistics. There is so much when you look at that. Sometimes people get, kind of look at it only from one way, but there are so many pieces that make that whole industry work and function efficiently. And so I think, sometimes people may not consider that as a career path, but I think it can be an excellent career path. And just because you may start in one position doesn't mean that that's where you'll finish, and that's okay, because every job you have teaches you something if you're willing to learn and grow in that position. And then if you do that really, really well, hopefully that prepares you for the next opportunity.
And those opportunities are really endless, just like you mentioned. So what do you believe are some opportunities right now that students could take advantage of? You had mentioned maybe like the career fairs that some ag companies would be able to go to, but do you know of any other opportunities students could take?
Well, I think when you're in high school, it's a little bit challenging because a lot of the jobs may require you to be 18 years old. But I think on a local level, even if you get, if you just throw yourself out there to kind of maybe, try to work at like a local farm stand, offer to work at a poultry farm. Poultry growers often are looking for help, and it's not an easy job. It can be labor intensive in terms of some of the tasks that need to be done, and just getting that exposure and just kind of seeing what the environment's like and say, hey, this is something I could love, or maybe it's something I won't, but at least you'll know. And don't be afraid of trying something and recognizing, well, I can learn stuff from this, but maybe it's not. Maybe this isn't really where my passion is, or what I want to do. And we also have to be emotionally mature enough to recognize sometimes there's going to be tasks and jobs we do because we have to support ourselves. We have to be responsible. We have to be able to pay our way. So every job is important, And so whatever job you have, do your very best at it. And, because again, you're preparing yourself for that next job.
And just getting your feet wet in the community. And Delaware is just really big in the poultry industry. So even as I'm driving, like on my way from work, on my way home, on my way from school, I see all these poultry houses. So students should really take those opportunities just to open the dialogue with their local producers, and just like we're doing now.
Now, once somebody gets into college, I know in extension, something that's really great, and sometimes there may be an opportunity as they're going from high school to college, especially summer interns. Internships are a fantastic way to get your feet wet, start to make connections, start to know, hey, is this somewhere I'd really like to go? But know that your integrity, who you are as a person, no matter whether it's a job you really want or not, do your very, very best, because your reputation will follow you. So you may say, well, I'm going to do really good. I really want to work for chemical sales. And let's say you do poultry, but it's not really what you want to do. Make sure you do your very best in poultry, because agriculture is so connected and your reputation follows you. So you want to make sure that whatever you do it with integrity. You do it the way you're supposed to do it, and you take responsibility. And that will set the stage for more opportunities beyond your degree or anything else.
And those are some really wise words that you just said there. I believe that's all the questions that we had today. I just want to thank you so much, Georgie, for just having us here and being able to open this dialogue and start it with our FFA members across the state and even beyond that. So thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course.